Glenn Drover's Empire's Galactic Rebellion. First impressions. Fenirob over here, JP over here. We just completed our first ever 2-player game of this magnificent monster of a game. First of all, this game is based on Empire's Age of Discovery, which is also a Glenn Drover offering, and is one of my favorite games of all time. In fact, I will put a link up here to the one playthrough we've done of that. It's in separate episodes of the different eras. This is the reskin with a sort of not Star Wars trademark.
Sure.
We've got the Empire, we have the Rebellion, we're the rebels. We're trying to populate these planets, do some covert missions, do some stuff. And at the end of the game, all of these bad Sentinels are going to come after us and destroy us on our different planets.
Yeah.
Now, there are a few reviews out there of this game, which I had seen before I purchased the game, and despite them, I bought it anyway. One of the main things people say that is a little bit difficult is the Galactic War. Again, we haven't played it other than 2 players. I didn't have a problem with it at all.
I did not. Our score was fairly close, not super close, but fairly close. And the war going slightly different a couple places probably could have at least gotten it to a point or 2 difference.
Right.
I mean,
it could have made a difference. In our game, it didn't.
Yes. And there's some things, again, part of my strategy was attempting to mitigate that at the end. But in the end, it's a random draw. I mean, you have to accept that, this is a game where you can do a lot of the planning right and you can do a lot of the strategy right, and then at the end you can have some bad draws even if you have good numbers in your favor.
It's Euro to a degree.
Correct.
You can build your engine. You certainly built an amazing engine with your economy, which I think at the end of the day won you the game.
I think so.
I definitely 15 extra points.
It worked super well for me, and it also gave me a lot of leeway to buy a ton of the science upgrades, which in turn means more actions on your next turn if you're getting the ones where you get extra workers, or these, obviously the points at the end of the game. I mean, one of them only netted me 1 point in the Senate, but the money netted me nothing, so why not buy that 1 point?
No, I agree. And see, I have played Empire's Age of Discovery more than you.
I think I've only played it 1 time.
I knew that, and again, I didn't look ahead and look at any of the technologies or the covert missions, the Imperial stuff. I knew that there was the possibility that technologies would add benefits ongoing early.
Right.
Like gain a hero every time in the covert mission box, all that stuff. And I'll put a link to our playthrough right here, and it'll be at the end of this video, I'm sure. Or at least what we did was we recorded the last 2 turns and the Galactic War.
Yeah, because I think from a viewing perspective, getting just this sampling of how the game wraps up is going to let you know what the experience is like and what that final scoring is like without having to sit through the entirety of the game. Although I can't think of a lot of games that have this epic of a feel that you could play faster than this.
Right. I think this is a 2-hour 2-player game if you know what you're doing.
Easily.
Yeah.
Easily.
And really, most of that's going to come from you trying to figure out the end game. Slows it down a little bit when you're trying to get points where you need them.
Yeah, those last few rounds definitely slow down because evaluating, which of these sciences are going to be the most valuable for me? Where is putting, 1 troop down on a planet going to get me a victory, or is it going to put me in danger of the Galactic War coming to my people first instead of the other players first?
Right.
Sometimes you got to take that gamble. You have to be like, oh, I'm 1 person down on this planet, but if I just sit back and the war goes to the other guy first, all that takes is them losing 1 fight, and maybe I'm all of a sudden taking that planet.
No, and it almost happened.
Yeah.
I mean, it was close. I mean, you had 9 cubes in the bag.
I had 9, they had 8.
And they had 8. So we basically had a 50-50 chance.
Yeah. And there were several planets where this one, I think I was in the lead by 1 and ended up losing the fight, but then beating the rest of the Sentinels. And then there was one other place, I think here, where if I had lost, 1 more fight or 2 more fights or something, then it would have swapped control. And easily, the Sentinels could have been defeated before you ever had to face them.
That's right. And really, I didn't even care half the time.
Yeah.
I was hoping you might beat them with one guy left.
Yeah, exactly.
The thing is, as you lose troops or as you lose units, it doesn't reduce the cubes in the bag that you have.
Correct. Your military, because it's your
technology.
Your military science is what's in the fight. So
I kind of like that.
One dude with a really nice laser rifle is just as valuable as having a bunch of troops if they don't know what they're doing.
So let's talk quickly about the components. I think they're top notch. I think the board pops really well. I think there was plenty of room, at least at 2 players.
Yeah.
Maybe if you were playing with, what does it play, 5? I think it plays up to 5. You might have a lot more people, but look.
But you also, at 5 players, you're going to be putting a whole lot of less people out there.
That's true.
I mean, you still get your actions.
The same number of units are going to be out there probably.
Right. It's just distributed.
Yeah, well, there'll be more spaces, I guess.
There would, yeah. They do some good things with these little marker ships to help you block off so that there's only a certain number of spaces on some of these actions to take.
And I know from Empire's Age of Discovery, you have your own personal player board and all this stuff. And,
right.
And I think it's a good move not to have it. I don't think you need it for this game.
All the components. I mean, it also, like, the path that one person goes down could be so different from somebody else that you may need a ton of space for these, sabotage missions, and you may not decide to do much of an economy. And, it would make sense to build a single player board that could hold everything for every player.
To me, okay, so component-wise, you agree with me? I mean, this is pretty top-notch. Do you have any complaints?
My only complaint, and it may just be because of the quantity of them, a few of these, they're plastic minis, and there's probably a few of them that, have a little bit of a wobbly foot on them that just,
probably need to, like,
a little bit of a heat gun or something, you could probably bend them all out. But as far as the look of them, I mean, it's all of the different, you have your scientists and your smugglers and stuff like that. They all have unique sculpts. They all look nice.
My heroes look different than your heroes.
Yeah, I've got this very upright, very pristine-looking dress hero,
and my guy's like
a claw coming out.
It looks like he's casting some sort of
so there's even some unique sculpts between the different the pieces. I mean all of the rest of the chips and stuff that are cardboard, they're all nice and hefty. It's It's very nice components.
I think the components match the epic feel to the game.
For sure.
Let's talk about theme for a second. To me, this feels like Rogue One, the movie.
I definitely live in that Star Wars universe. I mean, this is generic science fiction IP, but a lot of it does feel like... I don't know. The only difference for me between Star Wars and this one is how unified the rebellion is in Star Wars, whereas this is definitely
every
faction for themselves.
Yeah, but you still need to kind of occasionally.
Yes, occasionally it made sense for one of us to go after these Sentinels, after the sort of evil characters, instead of attacking other.
5 cubes during the game,
right,
and 8 at the end. Now I know there's a variant that Glenn Drover came up with that actually reduced the amount of cubes at the end for them, because some people complained that it was too harsh. But frankly, I don't want that. I feel like knowing that going into the game, you can mitigate
again,
risk.
I worked hard and ended up with 9.
And I worked not as hard and ended up with 3.
But that didn't hurt you that bad.
No, in fact, one time I won a battle.
Correct.
When you had much greater odds against me. And so... And I only attacked you one time and I lost.
Yeah, I think I attacked you
2 or 3 times.
2 or 3 times, lost 1 and won 2.
I didn't even feel that upset that you attacked me because there's only a finite amount of warfare.
Correct. Yeah, it does not feel combat heavy.
And I was throwing extra guys out on the board knowing that you might take them out.
Sure.
I think for me the theme, again, you can't get the IP, but if this were a Star Wars themed game, I think it would be way more popular because I think many people who play Star Wars games expect some modicum of luck.
That's true. There's not a lot of the true Euro only worker placement because if it's Star Wars, you expect a little bit of that sort of smuggler shooting from the hip.
Anything can happen.
Yeah, dogfighting scenario to it.
And I'm kind of glad that this is not an exact reskin of Empire's Age of Discovery because I can play that game anytime I want, and it definitely has an epic feel, but it has an epic feel that's more deterministic when it comes to the outcome of the game.
Yes.
In this game, I kind of like that it's different because there's a chance, even if you're kind of lurking around in the back of the game, you might still have a chance to come up and win the game at the end.
Yeah, and I would especially imagine, again, I think this plays incredibly fast at 2 players, and I think as you add players, that randomness of where you're seated in the planets at the end of the game, which again, maybe some people would complain about because of the sort of random finality nature of the Galactic War. But like you said, if you were in 3rd place and scoring the whole time, but sort of hanging around on all of those planets in that 2nd or 3rd place, and that first player really got knocked back,
you get 3 or 4 point swing for that. Big deal.
But if you lined it up right and you were a contender on all of the planets, even if you were in 3rd place from the rest of the scoring mechanics, you could pull it out. Depending on how the war goes.
Does that make you less of a gamer? It sounds like pretty good strategy to me.
Yeah, no, I think the player has to decide for themselves, and I think if you're watching this, whether or not do you like a little bit of luck and slightly mitigated, drawing cubes out of a bag at the end of a game to determine it all, or do you want to be able to determine every single thing because you put the right number of people into the right place and that's it? And I think if you're in that second category, I can see how the end scoring for this could feel frustrating because you could go from first to last real quick because of some bad draws.
Well, also thematic wise, I thought that the Imperial cards, the Imperial action cards, which makes you manipulate the Senate, definitely had the right flavor. Like some of them were really good for the Empire, and some of them were not so good.
One of my absolute favorite ones was the one, it was called like withholding the cure or something like that. Yeah, a plague cure withheld. And it was a slightly randomized card because you basically were drawing cubes out of a bag.
You drew all Sentinels.
Yes. Yeah, and it turned that planet around for me.
Because
at first I had just put a couple workers there and I was like, I don't know if this is even worth committing. Well, all of a sudden 5 Sentinels got removed from that planet.
That was insane.
Now it was a contending, try to go for that planet.
But that was exciting.
Yeah, it was great. And that's, again, I, as a player, don't mind games where I can do everything right and still fail. I mean, I may be frustrated in the moment where I'm rolling a 1 over and over again.
But if you feel like playing a game that's not that way, there are so many other offerings.
Play a different game than this.
Right. This game is not that game. But overall, like you said, it feels epic.
Yes.
But it condenses it into a time space. Now, let's talk about player count. We've only played it at 2. But I would totally play that game anytime with you at 2 players.
Oh, definitely. Going back to play it again at 2 players, like I said, it would be even faster because we would not have the hiccups of, making sure we got the turn order right and all that sort of stuff.
And you'll see in the playthrough, we in fact skipped the covert mission
entirely on a phase.
But,
I would definitely play it again at 2 players. I would be more than willing to try it at a higher player count. My only concern would be that one of my big pros as it stands is how fast this game went by for such an epic feel.
I think you'd be adding at least
it would get
30 minutes a player, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
Easily.
And I'm okay. Like, I think the next time we try it with more players, we should try it with 3 players.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to jump to 5.
Right. But I would
because it could go to an 8-hour game or something crazy. You never know.
Well, Empire's Age of Discovery at 2 players is still an okay game. It's fine. It's good. But it's much more interactive and it has more stuff going on. It's more exciting with more than 2 players because there's still enough room to kind of do what you want. Still fun. This one feels tighter at 2 players, like it was intended to play better at 2 players because almost like you're playing with an AI 3rd player Sentinel.
Because they're always, even if you can help manipulate them by saying, hey buddy, why don't you go over to that planet instead?
And that is not there in Empire's Age of Discovery.
Yeah.
So I think that was probably a design choice. Glenn Drover, if you're watching this, tell us what you thought.
Please let us know.
But I really do think that this game feels tighter at 2 players. And whereas with Empire's Age of Discovery, I would play it with 2 players because I really want to play that game, and I don't have more players. Here, I think I could see a situation where I prefer to play it with 2 players.
I think so. Again, the only place that drastically changes the number of available spaces is this section where you're literally just putting the troops out onto planets. Everything else does not change in space. And even at 2 players, there were still times where it's like, man, do I make sure I take that first trait, or do I take that first science?
And also, I thought that was very tight. I wish there was one more space.
Oh, yeah.
And then you had the one where you were able to place on the X every round.
Yeah, the technology,
And that really stung at the end because we had some of these planets that were very tight. And that one extra guy, 3 rounds or forever long you had it.
Especially since he falls at the end of the order.
Right.
You get to decide, do I want to put this into a tie? And then I will always have the ability to go back after.
I always felt like I had one less guy there than I wanted to.
Yeah, I agree.
So, I really like this. I was surprised. I mean, really, I'd say you should give this a chance. If you were on the fence like I was for at least a couple of years, I picked this up at a Black Friday sale, and I said, I'm just going to get it. And I wish I would have picked up the cubes. I got the extra guys, the extra purple guys, but I did not pick up the cubes. Make sure you pick those up if you get them. They're like $1, but I was like, I don't need purple cubes.
Yeah.
I did. I totally was impressed by this, and it exceeded my expectations. I thought this was going to be an okay game in a universe that was sort of unique type of thing, and I really was impressed. And in fact, I think this is close to a great game because I am okay with the hybrid Euro Amera style.
Yeah, I'm totally with that as well. I enjoyed it a lot. It's it checks a lot of the boxes for me personally of that old pushing people around a map kind of thing.
It's fun.
You get to put soldiers out there. You've got all these special abilities. It feels like there's not enough spaces for you to do everything that you want, but every worker that you have, there were so few times that I felt like, well, this worker means nothing, so I guess I'll put them here. Everything was like, oh, well, at least I get this new trade, and that means I can build up my engine, or I'll get to buy this new science. Every step felt important and also valuable.
And if you're really concerned about that, you might go for the first player with the initiative.
Yeah. I mean, most of the game, our play order didn't really change, but right at the end, it switched over, and we had to evaluate, is it worth it for taking those actions? And again, the theme that fits into the action cards from the Senate and from these sort of covert missions that you go on, it's even the end combat thing.
Yeah.
I
liked it.
I think you're going to know just by gut reaction whether or not you're okay with the game ending that way.
I mean, the Empire's had enough of the
they're fighting back
against the rebellion, and they're like, it's time to smash them down.
And so for me, a game where you feel like you went on an epic adventure and there's a cool sort of story arc to what's happening, and then at the end, life happens and some random stuff may happen, and that greatly impact the win or the loss. I'd rather go on a cool adventure.
If it was 5 hours
fun.
and you spent all of that time doing it, I think
and then you flip a coin,
right? Which basically there are some games like that.
Oh sure,
some very famous games.
Sure.
I won't name, but but I thought it was great on a scale of 1 to great. I'm going to call it really close to great for a first playthrough. I don't think I could have had more fun.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Really, really close to great for me. Again, I'd be curious to see how many playthroughs it took to really feel like, oh, this is the winning strategy. And certainly would be curious to try it at maybe 3 or 4 players and see what that difference made. Yeah. But as far as a 2-player game, it's real close to great for me.
All right, well there you have it. That's our first impressions of Galactic Rebellion. Thank you for watching. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel. May the not force be with you.